Hey guys, nothingwired.com, and look what we have here today. This is the brand new NEX 3N, the latest entrant in Sony's mirrorless camera market category. The NEX 3N enters right at the beginning. That's the 3 series. You also have the 5 series, 6 and 7 series in the ascending order. So NEX 3N replaces the NEX 3K in India and precedes the NEX F3 in some markets, but not all. The NEX 3N comes in a fairly regular NEX box. You have the kit lens with it. This is an interchangeable mirrorless camera. The kit lens is not your usual 18-55mm lens. Instead, it goes wider. It starts from 16mm and goes up till 50mm. This is also an SCLP lens and not SCL lens, so it's much smaller than your similar SCL lenses. So let's go ahead and unbox it and see what's in the box. So on the top you have the warranty card, then you have your some service center details, and then play memory home, that's Sony's own image management software, the description of that, some description of the accessories, then about the lenses, and then the quick start guide in different languages. Once we go further in, we see that there is a solder strap, there is a USB cable, micro USB, then there are a couple of power cords for separate regions. There is also an adapter. Then we have the USB power adapter there, and then we finally have our NEX 3N body. So that's the NEX 3N body with the 1650 lens, and I'm not sure, should also have the battery here, which is NP-FW 50 1080 mAh battery. So that is our NEX 3N mirrorless camera. The NEX series is aimed at having an APS-C DSLR performance in a compact pocket-sized point-and-shoot camera body, and the NEX 3N is no different. You see, it's almost palm size, and when you do not have the lens attached to it, it's almost of the same length and breadth as your 4-inch smartphone and would easily go inside your pant pocket. The whole body has a brilliant durable metal mount, and it has a very subtle sandblasted matte look. We love the attention to detail from Sony. Even the flaps are made of metal. You often see the flaps made of rubber, even on the high-end DSLRs. You have patches of texture rubber in places where you would hold the camera, textured because it will prevent your hand from slipping off. And also it's very high quality rubber, and it won't get slippery even if you use your sweaty or wet hands here. The front side has the E-mount lens, the autofocus assist lamp, the lens release button. On top you have the pop-out flash here, which comes out by pressing this button. Trust Sony to have some unique way of bringing out the flash. You have the sensor mark here, your stereo mics, the playback button, the zoom lever, the power lever, and the shutter release button. You also have a zoom lever on the lens body, but we'll come back to it in a while. On the back you have the 3-inch non-touchscreen LCD monitor, which rotates and goes up 180 degree to be able to give you a self shot. Note that you cannot look at it from left or right or from below, so the only way it goes up, only way it rotates it towards upside. Now you have the hold here to pull it up, because when you have your tripods attached, at times it could be difficult for you to erase your fingers here and then pull it out. In case of some tripod, you might not be able to pull this out, because the tripod might just come up. At that time you need to just loosen the grip a bit here, pull it up a bit, and then once you rotate it, then tighten the screw again. Yeah, so apart from the monitor, you have a few other buttons. Your dedicated video button here, and then 3 buttons which Sony calls as soft button A, B and C, and then you have a multifunctional dial, and depending on which mode you're in, the top will show you the display mode, and then this side is the drive mode. Here you have ISO. You can customize this button in a menu, and in fact you can customize most of these buttons in menu to have their dedicated functions, but I'm going to tell you the default one. And then below you have the exposure compensation scale marked here. Now the below button has different functions depending on which mode you're in. If you're in the total auto mode, for example, if you're in the superior auto or intelligent auto mode, then pressing the below button will take you to the creative styles. When you're in the semi-automatic mode, for example shutter priority, aperture priority, or even the program mode, this will give you the exposure compensation scale. And when you're in full manual mode, pressing the below button will toggle between shutter speed and aperture so that you can change both. Soft button A, B and C operates what's shown on the corresponding space on the LCD. For example, you see it's menu written, so whenever you press this will take you to menu. It's written help, so whenever you press this will take you to help, and it's written mode here, so whenever you press this it will take you to toggle the shooting mode. You can always customize these to have separate functions. For example, you can have some other function instead of help here. You can also customize this ISO button as I told you before. Yeah, then you have the eyelets for your lanyard. Then on the sides you have the metal flap, and it covers the micro USB port, your SD card slot, and then the micro HDMI port. You have the charging indicator there. No? Not much on this side. Below you have the speaker, tripod mount, and your battery compartment, which contains the NEX 5080 mAh battery. Note that many specifications say it's a 1020 mAh battery, but when we open the battery pack we saw it's actually a 1080 mAh battery. You have the CPU access lamp here, so whenever your camera is processing, this lamp will continuously glow and blink. Yeah, so that's about it. About the body, it looks great, durable, beautiful at the same time, very compact. Yeah, so let's talk about the lens now. So let's open the lens. I'm gonna press the lens release button and rotate the lens upwards very subtly, and it'll come off, and you see the E mount there, your lens contacts there, and the sensor. Because this is a mirrorless camera, you do not have a mirror sitting in front of the sensor. Now this is a very special lens. It's called SELP 16 to 50 mm f by 3.5 to 5.6 EPJ. SELP, the extra P denotes power zoom. There you see. So it has a zoom lever on the body here, yeah, as well as it also has a lone ring that acts as both zoom and focus fine tune. Now whenever you're in AF mode or DMF mode, this ring acts as zoom, and when you're in DMF and full manual mode, it can also act as your focus fine tune. Now in DMF mode, this lone ring can perform both zoom and focus fine tune. How it does it, that let's just feed it again. Yeah, so whenever you're in DMF mode, that means autofocus with manual override. Whenever you're not pressing the shutter release button, when you operate the ring, it will zoom the camera, yeah, it will zoom the lens, and whenever you press the shutter release button and then rotate the ring, it will fine tune the focus. Yeah, so because it's a new SELP lens, it's almost 30% smaller than the older SEL 18 to 55 mm lens. It's also, as you can see, starts from 16 mm and ends at 50 mm, so it's a little wider than the usual 1855 kit lens, which we like, of course. It has a brilliant quality landscape. Sony makes amazing landscapes. We love the Nikon landscapes till now, and these landscapes are very good, and they're almost of the equal quality of what Nikon makes, if not better. So all in all, you have very compact lens with a very compact durable body, which makes the NEX3N a great carry everywhere camera. Let's check out the user interface of the camera. So I'm gonna switch it on, and it greets you with a whole lot of info on the display. You can toggle what's shown on the screen by pressing this button. There you see. Yeah, so you have the menu by pressing this button, then you have the help menu by pressing this button, and the modes by pressing this button. Now note that when you're in the full auto mode, that's in I auto or S auto, pressing this will take you to the creative styles. There you see, pressing this will take you to the drive mode, of course, where you have the single shooting, continuous shooting, continuous shooting high. Continuous shooting low will show the preview very briefly. Continuous shooting high won't show you the preview. Then you have your self timers, and then the bracketing. Now, depending on which mode you're in, some of the options may come grayed out. There you see, so you cannot have those options. Pressing this won't toggle the ISO. It will toggle the ISO when you're in the semi-automatic modes, like it's denote here P, A, S and M. Yeah? Now when you go to P or A mode, for example, select that, the below button will give you an exposure compensation scale. Yeah, now you can toggle the ISO. There you see, you can have an ISO auto or 200 all the way up till ISO 16,000 there. Again, the menu and your help. Yeah, and when you have the full manual mode, pressing the below button will toggle between your aperture settings and shutter priority settings, so that you can change both. Yeah, so now let's check out the menu. It's divided in 6 parts. You have your shoot modes, which is practically the same thing that I've shown you. It has 2 full auto modes: intelligent auto, which automatically decides the scene and then shoots the picture according to that. I auto, which clicks high quality picture, reducing some blur and doing some correction, automatic corrections. You have the program mode, where except the exposure, that is shutter speed and aperture, you can change other functions like ISO or drive modes and exposure and some other things. Yeah, then you have A, S, aperture priority, shutter priority and full manual mode. You have your eye sweep, panorama. You have some scene modes. Yeah, then you have the camera mode, which shows you the camera options. For example, your drive mode, which I showed you just now, and then it has your flash modes. Again, depending on which shooting mode you're on, your flash options will differ. And then you have your autofocus, DMF or manual focus selection, and then you have autofocus area, tracking focus, face detection, face registration, where it saves a number of faces and then give priority to them when you're shooting. Smile shutter, auto object framing is a new feature, and it's very useful at times when you quickly need to click a photo and publish. It automatically cuts the frame to give emphasis on the 2 persons, 2 portraits that you're shooting. Now I generally would like to keep it off, because I like to have the freedom of cropping the snap in post-processing. Soft skin effect again gives a soft kind of a tinge to the skin, so that the skin looks better and not with much pimples and those skin tones. I again like to set it to off because I would like the freedom to handle it myself in post-processing. Then you have shooting tip list and your display button. Let's see, you can choose what display you want to show. And then you have your image sizes, so maximum is 16 MP in 3.2 aspect ratio, but when you go to widescreen it comes down to a maximum of 14 MP. Yep, so you'll have to take that trade-off. I like to shoot at 3:2 anyway, but it totally depends on your personal preference. The quality, the NEX 3N shoots in RAW, so you can have only RAW, both RAW and JPEG. You have fine JPEG, standard JPEG quality. Then in panorama mode you can have your image sizes and panorama direction in panorama mode, so I'm going to quickly show you that mode. Once we're in panorama mode, when you go to image size, you can have your standard image size or wide, and then you can have your direction, your right, left, up, down, so it can go on all the 4 directions. But sadly you cannot do it while shooting. You have to choose the option mainly in the menu, and this menu is rather complex in that way, because many of the functions where you want to toggle them while shooting very quickly, you cannot actually. You need to go to the menu to be able to change them. For example, like just I showed you the panorama direction here, so we'll come back to full manual mode, and then we'll show you some movie settings. So you have your file format AVGHD or MP4, and because it's India, you have the PAL format mainly, so you have maximum 50i at 24 m speed. So in US and some other countries you can have the NTSC camera available, where the frame rate can go up to 60i. Note that 50i is interlaced. At 24 it becomes progressive, so you can shoot at 24p as well. You have some brightness or color settings where you can toggle your ISO, white balance, metering, flash compensation, your dynamic range, picture effect and creative style, etc. Now you have lots of picture effect. You have toy camera, pop, retro, soft key, all this. Check them out in our detailed review video where we'll show you samples. Then you have your creative style there, you see, vivid and landscape, sunsets, etc. That gives you optimum settings while shooting under a specific condition. You have some playback options like deleting and editing, rotating, and some printing options there. And then you have the setup menu, which largely sets up the camera and the system and the memory cards. You have auto exposure lock, you have illuminator. You see peaking level, you can have peaking level mid or low, and then you can select the color white or red, and it will show you it will show the areas that are overexposed in that particular color. You have clear image zoom and then a digital zoom, so on top of your the optical zoom. You have self-portrait, self-timer, which means, as it's written here, the moment you can have an option to enable the moment you rotate the monitor in a self mode, automatically the self turns on the 3-second self timer. Yeah, so you have manual focus assist and steady shot, which is optical steady shot of course, and then you have your lens shading, that's vignetting option on, and then you have chromatic aberrations auto, and then distortion auto, wind noise reduction, and some system setups, and then you have some memory card options. Yeah, so all in all, pretty usual, I would say, menu system, UI for those who have been using the Sony cameras, but for those who haven't been using the Sony cameras, there might be a high learning curve in getting through the user interface. Many of the functions are not obvious, like for example, as I told you, pressing the button below in full manual mode. Those are not written on the manual. You have to explore them yourself. We'll talk about the performance of the NEX 3N in three phases: system, still, and video. As far as the UI is concerned, we didn't feel any lag. It's pretty fast and smooth. There you see, browsing the UI is actually a pleasure, and we love quickly moving on to another items. The buttons give proper feedback. Yeah, pretty smooth and fast. So the autofocus is very silent. The operation of the zoom and retraction of it has slight sound, but it's not disturbing at all. It has 25 autofocus points, none crosshair, and they lock into the subject very quickly, especially at the wide end. It has two burst mode, a normal and a speed priority. In normal mode, it shows you slight preview. In speed priority, it does not show you any preview. In the normal burst mode, you can shoot at 2 FPS, and we've seen that almost after 12 frames the FPS lowers slightly, but you can continuously click at that lower frame per second rate almost endlessly. At speed priority burst mode, it can click up to 4 FPS, and we've seen after about 8 to 9 frames the frame rate goes down. Now, as far as the still performance is concerned, we'll talk about one biggest advantage this guy has, and then one not so good advantage that we would have liked Sony to improve upon. So the biggest advantage, or the best thing that we've liked about this guy, is that it has almost an out of this world low light performance. Yes, so almost till up to about ISO 6400, you almost see very low noise and grain, and it only when you goes up to about 12,800 or 16,000 ISO you would need to use post-processing to remove those grains. So up till about 6400 is perfectly alright to upload in web, and even up to about ISO of 3200 you can actually print them on. It's that good. Now the thing that we did not like about this system is that there is no true macro mode. Of course, you have macro modes in the full auto mode when it automatically goes into the macro mode, and then you can also set a macro mode in the scene mode, but the minimum distance between the lens and the subject is just not close enough to be able to take a true macro photo. The NEX 3N does a very commendable job correcting the barrel distortions, vignetting, all lens shading, and chromatic aberration, provided you have those filters on here in the menu. So you can go to menu, you can go to setup, and then you can have those options open here. So make sure you have all these options set to auto and not off. So they have two options here. Auto is switch on. So when you do not have those filters on, let's say for example in case of chromatic aberration, you will see significant purple fringing, as you can see on this photo on the right top corner, and also you will see prominent vignetting happening. Overall, the color rendition is almost perfect. The saturation is very true, and deep colors and the filters and effects that we have with these cameras are pretty cool and fun to use. You should actually try them. You should actually try all the filters. They are very good, and they are very distinctive from one another. The NEX 3N autofocus is pretty fast even at the tail end of this optical zoom while recording videos, but when you go to the digital zoom you see slight fuzziness. We see quite a lot of fuzziness even at the tail end of the clear zoom range, so we advise you to switch off the digital zoom for now. We also recommend you to switch off the wind noise reduction, as it's overall decreases the quality of the other normal noise when you record under heavy wind, because in the process of reducing the background wind noise, it reduces the quality and it takes off some of the portion or some of the data from the normal sound as well. First thing first, the NEX 3N is an incredible value for money at under 30,000 Indian rupees. At this price point, you generally get the entry-level DSLRs from all manufacturer, and they go slightly over 30 as we speak. But then this guy comes under 30 at about 29 odd K, and at that price you have an interchangeable lens, DSLR body, almost palm size, will easily go into your pocket, the body and the lens separately. You have the kit lens, which is slightly wider than your usual 1855 lens. It's a 1650 lens, and it's very compact. I haven't seen such a small size 1650 or 1855 lens. So overall it's a very compact system, which almost all the features that you would otherwise get on a normal entry-level DSLRs. Now, feature and performance wise, in some areas this guy does slightly better than some of the other entry-level DSLRs. For example, this guy has an incredible low light performance. We would have liked the macro feature to increase, which is not at par with the other entry-level DSLRs from, let's say, Nikon or Canon. But then overall at 29,000, this guy is brilliant. Now top it, you do not have many E-mount lens options. In fact, you only have 4, but then you can use a converter and then you can use all of Sony's A-mount lenses. So that gives this whole system again that much more versatility. It's also mirrorless, very compact. Yep, so overall I can see at under 30,000, if you consider buying an interchangeable lens camera, this could be at least one of your top 2 choices. Thank you.